Hey, how's it going? I just want to do a quick lesson on credit, and just a couple observations that I've seen, in my experience. I'm an accountant and a CPA, but you don't really need to be, economics or finance or accounting wizard to see, the scam that's being run. But just to give you a couple stories. One example that I didn't understand at the time. This was even not that many years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. I was trying to get a condo in Union City in New Jersey, and it was relatively inexpensive, which was kind of strange because most of them are very expensive. I think it was around like 150,000 or 200,000 for a condo unit, which again is very cheap, for that area. And so, I was going through the paperwork, dealing with the realtor and, the owner of the building. And then, I guess they had these mortgage insurance underwriters, which basically they just, what I think happens is that they take your information and then they basically put it out into this open market, this black box, and then, look for people who are interested in taking on you as a risk for, a property. Or for a loan. And so, I went through that process, and, the wording of the contract was very vague, just confusing. And, I was very hesitant to sign anything, and I didn't sign anything even during the preliminary parts. And, just really confused, as far as why the order was backwards. So like the whole thing, is definitely a scam. And what I realized is that since my credit score and my ability to pay off, that unit was pretty sound, just because my net worth at the time was very sufficient, that if I worst come to worst, if I sold everything, I would be pretty close to be able to paying it off. And so I was considered myself a strong applicant, for this property, this condo. But what I realized, and this is the intuition about the economy and or at least the way the U.S. system is, which has pretty much infused itself everywhere, is that during good times, it is good to have a good credit score. It is, and I unfortunately was applying, or fortunate for me, I'm glad I didn't secure anything, knowing the days that we live in now. But at that time, when things are starting to decline, which the decline for this third crash, there was a .com crash, then the housing market crash in '08, and then we expect one coming soon. This decline, I would say, has started near the end of 2014, where the dollar flipped and oil prices dropped. And to me, that was the when the ball started rolling on this third crash that I feel is coming. So so I would classify a downtime at that point going forward. And we know, broadly speaking, America's been on a decline for decades, but I'm just speaking more at a microeconomic level, is that roughly at the end of 2014 was when it's really the dollar that's all the currencies are really the major thing that dictates markets going up or down. And then the US dollar reversing course at the end of 2014. And so I was, trying to secure this condo, after that. And so, I was on the downswing. So during times that are good, a good credit score will help you because, there's people who want to, lend you money, make sure that, you will be able to pay it back so they can go and take their interest or their proceeds and then, go invest into other things, because there would be growth. It's a growth cycle. However, this is the satanic part. Well, credit overall is evil, but during a downturn, it's actually better to have bad credit because people, just like the owners of these properties, they're actually looking for people who are highly likely to default on their loans, because then they will be able to retrieve their property, at a very low cost. Like you might be able to salvage a bit of the equity that you've put in, during the downtime. But if you come upon tough times, or just the economy slows down, and you default on your payments, and the contracts it's very beneficial to the owner, to be able to say, well, hey, look, I know that you've paid a third of it off or half of it, but, you're missing payments, and, you might be on unemployment, or unemployment might have run out. You can't pay for it anymore. You're forced to sell, in a very, desperate situation. And then you might have to potentially even sell it back to the owner. Obviously an incredibly favorable position for the owner. So, and it's the same with cars and all that. It's like, it's the same idea. It's like they're actually banking on you not repaying it. They don't want you to pay it back. It's like in an ideal system, that they would look for people who are capable, and likely to repay, and lend appropriately, But with a zero interest rate environment where basically money is given out for free, or it's just there's an abundant supply is another way to think about it. It basically promotes, just very poor lending practices. And this hurt us in the '08 thing where people were just, getting houses and just getting approved. And those loans were then being securitized and put on the stock market. And they were toxic. And then, the economy crashed. And then it would have crashed more if the Fed didn't buy a lot of that toxic real estate, which is still on their balance sheet to this day. And when they talk about unwinding their balance sheet, they talk about, selling that or reinfusing that back in the market, but obviously it's worthless, all the securities that they're holding. So, that's another major reason why they can't raise interest rates, because, just to service their own debt, the Fed will not be able to do it. And so they have to leave this system the way it is right now. And so we're experiencing that same thing. So, now because we did have an expansion in the sense that the money supply was expanding, and some people were, increasing their wealth. But, near the end of 2014, we're starting to see a reversal. And, it's a slow death. It pretty much is only limited by the amount of money that, the Fed can print, and then they can do it, we've seen to an unlimited degree. But at each day that goes by, we're degrading the U.S. dollar more and more. So that's why, in Revelation, when it talks about, famines and mourning and, these plagues coming in an hour, it literally could come, in a day where, the dollar just revalues itself to what it's really worth. And, maybe let's say it's worth, 5 or 10% of what it's trading, that will immediately freeze credit markets, and, people will redistribute goods to a different country, different place, or potentially slow down production and stop, sending us food and other items. So that's where, that's likely how the famines and all that stuff will get kicked off. So, just this is probably obvious to a lot of people, but just more kind of intuition on, you might be wondering, why you have such a good credit score, but, people are just not, really that excited to lend you stuff, or if you can already pay for something in its entirety, why they still might want you to take out a loan, because they're kind of hoping that, you'll spend all that money that you should have been paying off that item for, and then they might be able to repossess whatever they're selling to you on a loan. So, it's a very satanic system. It's just, it's not, responsible, centralized, distribution of wealth for a country. It's obviously done in a way to promote, irresponsible purchases. And even when the purchases are responsible, the person lending you money is betting against you.